Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. YouTube is expanding its crackdown on videos that question the safety and efficacy of vaccines. And it applies to all vaccines, not just COVID. Meanwhile, Russia threatens to block YouTube for taking down videos that question COVID policies. New York's healthcare workers have to get vaccinated or they'll lose their jobs. Not even a religious exemption can save them, or can it? Pentagon officials testify on the Afghanistan withdrawal before a House panel. The lawmakers keyed in on what appeared to be contradictions between President Biden's comments and the top general's testimony. Democrats met with a second setback today on their efforts to push immigration policy change through Congress in a budget bill. They say it's time to move on to Plan C. The U.S. Secretary of Commerce is accusing Beijing of preventing Chinese airlines from buying U.S. aircraft. She has also accused the regime of human rights abuses and stealing intellectual property. YouTube is adopting a new policy, expanding its ban on some videos and accounts that are critical of vaccines. The tech giant says people cannot upload videos that promote vaccine hesitancy or claim that vaccines are harmful or ineffective. And this isn't just limited to COVID-19 vaccines. NTD's Allison Lee has the details.
True or false? Telling your viewers that vaccines do not reduce risk of contracting illness.
YouTube announced in a statement Wednesday they are expanding their medical misinformation policies. They don't allow videos that claim vaccines cause chronic side effects, do not reduce disease transmission, or contain substances not on the ingredient list. Here are some examples.
We don't allow claims that vaccines cause autism, are part of a depopulation agenda, cause chronic health effects such as infertility or cancer, do not reduce the risk of contracting illness, contain substances that are not on the vaccine ingredient list, such as biological matter from fetuses, contain substances such as microchips meant to track or identify those who've received them, or claims that vaccines alter a person's genetic makeup.
The policy is already in effect. It applies to all vaccines approved by health authorities and the World Health Organization, not just COVID-19 vaccines. YouTube says since last year, they've removed over 130,000 videos for violating their COVID-19 vaccine policies. The company calls them harmful vaccine content.
Health authorities like the World Health Organization have given clear medical guidance on the safety, efficacy, and ingredients of approved vaccines.
YouTube will allow videos about vaccine policies, new vaccine trials, historical vaccine successes or failures, and personal testimonials, but they cannot show a pattern of promoting vaccine hesitancy. If you violate this policy for the first time, you will get a warning and then a strike the next time on. If you get 3 strikes in 90 days, YouTube will terminate your channel. On Wednesday, YouTube announced it had terminated the accounts of several prominent influencers who hold alternative views on the COVID-19 vaccine, including Dr. Joseph Mercola and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Allison Lee, NTD News.
And YouTube's COVID-19 policies have led to a major dispute with Russia. The Kremlin is threatening to ban the tech giant after it shut down 2 channels from Russia's state broadcaster. YouTube claims the channels spread COVID-19 misinformation. Here are the details.
Russia is threatening to retaliate against both YouTube and Germany today. That's after YouTube shut down 2 German-language channels from Russian state broadcaster RT. YouTube had already issued strikes and suspended the channel from uploading new videos for a week. An RT reporter explained what the videos in question talked about.
Criticism of the government's approach of the pandemic voiced by other medical experts, not by journalists. So to claim that this was medical misinformation, misinterpretation, well, in the eyes of RT Deutsch, that's debatable.
Now Russia's communications regulator says it will block access to YouTube if the tech giant doesn't restore the videos. And the Russian Foreign Ministry calls the measure unjust. They allege that YouTube collaborated with the German government, a charge Germany denies.
Wir haben diese Entscheidung von YouTube zur Kenntnis genommen I want to say in crystal clear terms that this is a decision by YouTube, and the German government or representatives of the German government have nothing to do with this decision. So anyone who alleges that is putting together a conspiracy theory.
Wer das also behauptet, der bastelt sich eine Verschwörungstheorie zurecht.
The Russian Foreign Ministry also says retaliatory measures are not only appropriate, but also necessary. And RT calls this ban an act of media war by Germany. The outlet's editor-in-chief promises to ban German media operating in Russia.
Aus unserer Sicht gibt es überhaupt keinen Anlass.
From our point of view, there is absolutely no reason for those, as you call them, retaliations against German media working in Russia. And anyone who calls for or talks of such retaliations doesn't show a good relationship with press freedom, from our point of view.
One of the channels, RT Deutsch, had over 600,000 followers and operated primarily in Germany. After YouTube temporarily suspended the channel, RT used another channel to upload videos. YouTube then banned both of them for violating community guidelines.
The pandemic appears to be waning globally. That's what the WHO is reporting, a decline in the number of cases and deaths. This week, both cases and deaths fell 10% compared to last week. The WHO says the Eastern Mediterranean region reported the biggest decline. Second was the Western Pacific region, followed by the Americas. Overall, WHO data says over 4.7 million people have died in the pandemic. These numbers are based on data each country reports, but there have been questions about China's reporting. According to the WHO, China, a country with a population of 1.4 billion, has reported fewer than 1,000 cases a day and fewer than 100 deaths a day for several months. But China has been accused of underreporting its numbers, so those figures are likely inaccurate. And United Airlines is set to terminate nearly 600 employees who don't want to get vaccinated. United was the first U.S. airline to issue a mandate. United says more than 99% of domestic employees chose not to get vaccinated, not including those who asked for an exemption. Despite the layoffs, it plans to hire about 25,000 people over the next few years. But you gotta be vaccinated. Students at United's pilot training school will also need to be jabbed. A Gartner poll says 46% of companies plan to issue vaccine mandates. A deputy at the King County Sheriff's Office in Washington State has resigned. He cited what he called toxic leadership in the department as the reason. Those leaders, he says, stopped caring about their deputies.
And this message is directly for Macy, our sheriff. You failed us, and you failed us miserably. You should have left when the guild was asking you to. I once suggested to a senior member up there downtown, when I worked downtown, to do a command climate survey. And I got laughed at. They said the sheriff doesn't really want to know the truth to that. In 5 combat deployments, even where I was losing soldiers and morale was really low, I have never worked in an organization that had lower morale than we have right now.
Former Deputy Jesse Bailey served 23 years in the Army and 10 years as a law enforcement officer. He said he continued to come to work despite the defund the police movement, but he says when the department started to become toxic on the inside, that was too much for him. We contacted the sheriff's office and they declined to comment. What's more, Bailey reportedly says that despite being fully vaccinated, he stands with his officers and their right to choose. And you probably heard of the vaccine mandate for healthcare workers in New York State. Tens of thousands might lose their jobs because of it. One organization took matters to the court. NTD's Arian Pazdar has more from the courthouse in New York.
New York healthcare workers can get medical exemptions if they're allergic to the vaccine, but religious exemptions are not allowed. Now an organization called We the Patriots USA is trying to get the state to allow religious exemptions. On Wednesday, the lawyer in the case was part of a hearing before 3 judges in New York City. I asked him what he thinks about the fact that religious exemptions were still allowed when the mandate was first issued under former Governor Cuomo.
All along, these healthcare workers were promised you will keep your religious exemptions. All of a sudden, the rug gets ripped out from underneath them. Come on, folks. These people spent an entire year being lauded as heroes without a vaccine. What changed?
His client, the vice president of We the Patriots USA, explained why many religious believers don't want to get the shot.
All of the COVID-19 shots, for instance, were tested and or produced using aborted fetal cell lines. And people who have sincere objections to abortion do not believe in participating in that material cooperation with evil in any way, shape, or form.
87% of New York State healthcare workers are fully vaccinated. In order for them to keep their jobs, they don't have to be fully vaccinated. They need only one shot. But on Tuesday, reporting on percentage of hospital workers with at least one dose was discontinued by the state. I reached out to the Department of Health to ask why they stopped reporting on it, but didn't hear back before broadcast. New York State healthcare workers who lose their jobs over the mandate will not be eligible for unemployment benefits. We the Patriots USA and their lawyer say they will take the case to the Supreme Court if everything else fails. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Today, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and General Mark Milley testified before the House Armed Services Committee on the evacuation of Afghanistan. This was their second day of congressional testimony on the end of the longest war in U.S. history. NTD's Jason Perry has the details.
Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Milley and CENTCOM Commander General McKenzie both said their previous assessments were to keep 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. Congressman Mike Johnson pointed out the contradiction in President Biden's interview with ABC News. Biden said no military advisors told him that they should keep 2,500 troops in Afghanistan.
So here's the thing. There's only three possibilities here. Either the president lied to the American people, or he legitimately cannot remember the counsel of his top military advisors in winding down the longest war in American history, or you have not been fully accurate under oath. General McKenzie, I'll ask you, which is it?
I'm going to be very direct. I cannot share advice I give the president, and I will not do that. I will also tell you, though, that it's been my consistent position throughout this hearing and the hearing yesterday that I believe the appropriate level of our forces in Afghanistan should have been 2,500.
Congressman Mike Rogers tried to key in on who made the decision to go against the top general's assessments.
I want to know who said we're going to go from 2,500 to 650 and just protect Kabul and the State Department.
It was a military analysis that 600 to 700 could adequately defend the embassy until contractors come up, and that was then approved up through the chain and approved at the highest levels.
Who made the decision?
I would say that that decision was made in a national security consultative process by the highest levels of our government.
In mid-April, President Biden made the decision to decrease the number of troops in Afghanistan to 650. General McKenzie understood with troop levels that low, it would mean that the U.S. military could no longer secure Bagram Air Base, and the Afghan government would likely fall.
Now, you've said repeatedly that you personally believe the Afghan government would fall if we didn't maintain a certain number of troops in country. So why didn't you plan for an evacuation and leave enough troops on the ground to conduct it?
So let's be very clear. The evacuation has to be ordered by the Department of State. The drawdown of U.S. forces was ordered by the President in April and completed in July. The non-combatant evacuation operation is a separate mission, and it was not completely under the control of the Department.
So you're going to fall back on the bureaucracy, the divide between DOD and state?
Well, Representative, I'm going to fall back on the orders that I
got. Out and then had to put more back in?
I'm going to fall back on the orders that I receive, Representative.
Congressman Mike Rogers drew his own conclusions after hearing much of the testimony.
I think the general officers here and the secretary have made it very clear that they gave the president advice that he wouldn't listen to. The last president, they gave him advice and he did listen to it. So, I mean, I'm not challenging, and I have not in any way disparaged these great gentlemen. In fact, in my opening remarks, I made it abundantly clear I don't want them shouldering blame for what happened in this withdrawal when it was the administration and the State Department and National Security Advisor. And with that, I'll yield.
Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said in the past 48 hours, they have evacuated 63 American citizens and 169 permanent residents out of Afghanistan. Jason Perry, NTD News.
And Democrats hit with another obstacle to their immigration reform agenda. Today, the Senate Rules Advisor threw out the Democrats' second effort to change immigration policy in their budget bill. In this second attempt, Democrats wanted to change the date for when illegal immigrants can apply for citizenship. But the Senate Rules Advisor, Elizabeth Madonna, rejected their efforts again. She called this a weighty policy change and that her analysis of the issue is the same as before. Democrats are pushing hard to include immigration in their budget bill because they could pass it without Republican votes. But so far, they've met with one setback after another. Democrats say they'll keep trying, though. Senator Menendez called Madonna's decision unfortunate, but says they'll move to Plan C. Natural gas prices fell almost 7% today after a big run-up, but it's still up 26% for September and almost double since the beginning of the year. Americans should prepare to fork out a little more this winter as global demand heats up. NTD's Faye Quarter has the details.
Natural gas prices have surged over 180% over the past year, the most expensive it's been since 2014.
You're seeing supply and investment in supply kind of lag behind demand because there's a little bit of uncertainty and risk. People don't want to jump right in and start producing a lot.
Brett Bennett is a policy director at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. He says there was a huge demand shock during the pandemic, and now there's a lot of uncertainty in the industry about how the demand will recover. Bennett says the social atmosphere also plays a role.
The ESG movement, the political motivation to invest more in renewable assets right now versus oil and gas resources and coal as well, is trying to drive up prices.
John Boyd is a principal at the Boyd Company, which specializes in corporate site selection. He says another big reason is the Biden administration's energy policy.
Biden's executive order, signed in January, which places a moratorium upon leasing for oil and gas drilling. Of course, roughly 25% of our nation's energy comes from federal lands.
Even though supply is behind demand, the United States is the world's leading producer of natural gas. The U.S. Energy Information Administration says around half of U.S. households use natural gas, and that natural gas is the most used power source for the U.S. power grid. Faye Quarter, NTD News.
Public school policy is once again the topic of debate in Virginia. During the gubernatorial debate yesterday, candidates clashed over how much say parents should have over what their kids learn at school. That was while parents rally outside of the Loudoun County School Board meeting. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
Virginia's gubernatorial candidates battled it out on Tuesday night during their second and final debate before the November election. One comment in particular on the issue of school policy is drawing a lot of attention. Democratic candidate Terry McAuliffe, who previously served as Virginia governor between 2014 and 2018, appeared to say that he doesn't think parents should tell schools what to teach.
The parents had the right to veto books, Glenn, not to be knowledgeable about it, also take them off the shelves. And I'm not going to let parents come into schools and actually take books out and make their own decision.
You vetoed it.
So, yeah, I stopped the bill that I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach.
He was responding to Republican opponent Glenn Youngkin. Youngkin claimed that McAuliffe vetoed a bill that would have informed parents about what books are being put in school libraries. For the last several months, Virginia has been front and center of a battle between parents and school districts. Around the same time the debate was taking place, parents were rallying outside Loudoun County public schools. They've been pushing back against critical race theory type curricula and a transgender restroom and pronoun policy. The school board has faced criticisms for going ahead with the controversial policies and curricula. But the district has defended the transgender policy, saying it's consistent with Virginia state law. During the debate, Youngkin argued that parents should be more involved in these decisions.
And we must demand that they include parents in this dialogue. What we've seen over the course of the last 20 months is our school systems refusing to engage with parents. In fact, in Fairfax County this past week, we watched parents so upset because there was such sexually explicit material in the library they had never seen. It was shocking.
Youngkin says he supports local school districts instead of the state making their own policy decisions. McAuliffe says he thinks school districts should have input while states issue guidance. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
The U.S. Secretary of Commerce is accusing Beijing of preventing Chinese airlines from buying U.S. aircraft. She's also accused the regime of human rights abuses and stealing intellectual property.
The U.S. is accusing Beijing of violating a trade deal between the two countries and hindering Chinese companies from purchasing Boeing airplanes. U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo said on Monday the Chinese government prevented its domestic airlines from buying tens of billions of dollars of U.S. manufactured Boeing airplanes. She said similar in a previous interview with National Public Radio, accusing China of stealing U.S. intellectual property rights and creating all kinds of barriers for U.S. companies to do business in China. China accounts for a quarter of Boeing's global market. But continuing deterioration of U.S.-China relations has added uncertainty to the prospects for cooperation between Boeing and China. Dave Calhoun is Boeing's president and chief executive officer. He says, "We cannot afford to be locked out of that market." China's foreign ministry responded days later, saying China hopes the U.S. can follow market principles and work with Beijing.
Coming up, an apartment exploded in Dallas, Texas this morning. The building partially collapsed and over half a dozen people are now in the hospital. We bring you more on their condition and the suspected cause. And 2 people shot in Manhattan's Upper West Side. A mayoral candidate makes an appearance, says the city needs a mayor in the streets. Find out more in just a moment here on NTD News. Eight people were injured when an apartment complex in Dallas exploded. That includes 4 firefighters. They were responding to a reported natural gas leak there at around 10 o'clock this morning. 3 of the firefighters are reportedly in critical condition. The injured have been taken to hospitals, and the cause of the blast is under investigation, though residents said they smelt gas in the area up to 12 hours beforehand. The explosion caused a partial collapse of the 2-story apartment complex. The building, called Oak Cliffs Apartments, is located in South Dallas on the 5700 block and Highland Hills Drive. We wish those affected a speedy recovery. And 2 people were shot Tuesday night in Manhattan's Upper West Side. A mayoral candidate went to the crime scene to point out an important piece of evidence. He says the city needs a mayor that'll be on the streets. NTD's Miguel Moreno has that story.
We're near 89th Street in Amsterdam, where 2 people were shot Tuesday night. All that's left is a trail of dried blood. The NYPD tells us 2 men were shot, one in the chest, one in the arm. Mayoral candidate Curtis Sliwa was there that night to assess the aftermath. Talk to me a little bit about what happened at the spot.
It was about 8:30 last night, and a drug deal is taking place.
Sliwa founded the Guardian Angels, an unarmed civilian patrol group, about 40 years ago to help quell New York City's high crime.
We can see the bloodstains here.
On Tuesday night, the candidate pointed out for the cameras that there was a gun beneath a car, not far from where the shooting happened. The NYPD tells us Sliwa didn't recover the gun, but the candidate says this is the kind of presence the mayor needs to have.
Is that it? There it is. Good. If the mayor is there, then the police will feel a morale boost. The mayor's here. They got my back. And they'll be more aggressive, and you'll see crime will go down. But if the mayor doesn't come out, then the men and women of the police department are going to assume they don't care at City Hall. So you got to show the cops that you care. You got to be a cheerleader for them. And the people have to see the mayor's here. Oh, something's going to get done.
Sliwa says neither his Democratic opponent, Eric Adams, nor the current mayor fits this description. Adams hasn't gotten back to us, but like Sliwa, he has crime-fighting experience. According to his campaign's website, the Democratic candidate served as a New York City police officer for 22 years. On Twitter this Wednesday, Adams laid out steps the city should take to stop blood from running in the streets. I renew my calls, he said, for steps to combat this crisis, which include creating a joint guns and gangs task force, rebuilding the NYPD's plainclothes unit as an anti-gun unit, and fully funding the crisis management system. That last one is a city system that sends teams of violence interrupters to help de-escalate disputes before they turn violent. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
An iconic billboard at Manhattan's largest department store is once again the center of attention. For more than 50 years, Macy's was emblazoned across the building. But soon, the sign could belong to Amazon. Here's NTD's Evelyn Lee at Herald Square, Manhattan.
After more than half a century, this giant billboard soon won't read Macy's anymore. Its lease is up. And now Amazon is reportedly eyeing it. But now Macy's is filing a lawsuit against its landlord. The retailer wants Kaufman Realty to block a possible deal with Amazon to use the billboard. It's right on top of its flagship store in Manhattan. Macy's says that it would cause immeasurable harm to its business. When the lease for the ad space expired in August, they failed to come to an agreement. And the Macy's complaint says that Kaufman was already in talks with Amazon at that point. The original deal in the 60s barred any retailer from advertising on the billboard forever. But the landlord called that provision invalid, according to court papers. Amazon said recently it would open its own department stores. Now critics worry that this is another blow to existing retail businesses. This court battle is happening during a time when New York's retail businesses are still on shaky ground. And Macy's just announced recently that it would update this flagship store for almost $250 million. Evelyn Lee, NTD News, New York.
Coming up, a rocket launch failed in China with the wreckage falling into a densely populated area. At least 4 such failures took place this year. And the UK may be having second thoughts about Chinese involvement in its critical infrastructure. The government is asking a Chinese company to sell its stake in a proposed nuclear power plant. Find out more here on NTD News.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
The UK is reportedly forcing a Chinese business to sell its stake in a nuclear power station. This as relations between London and Beijing cool off, and the UK takes another look at Chinese involvement in its critical infrastructure. NTD's Patrick Hayden in London has more.
China's CGN currently owns a 20% stake in a proposed nuclear plant in the UK called Sizewell C. Having China deeply involved with critical infrastructure is an ever-increasing security concern for the UK government. The Financial Times reports the government plans to force the sale of the Chinese stake.
We should never have got ourselves into the deluded belief that the only way the UK could raise capital for its long-term economic and energy mix for the future was to turn to China.
CGN is a US blacklisted company and is considered to have ties to the Chinese military. The UK government has been slower to recognise the security threat. Forcing the sale of the Chinese ownership will likely mean the government will own the stock, while a decision is made how to structure the company.
But look, let's be clear, the IPO is just one of the many inventive ways we have of being able to raise capital in this country. As the global hub of international finance, we can, with some ease, find access to capital markets necessary to build these infrastructure projects.
Armstrong says the UK should spread its investments across smaller nuclear plants so there is enough nuclear power to support renewable sources.
But there are now more options on the table than ever before. The advent of small and medium-sized reactors offer the ability to create low-risk, spread out energy mix that can make a good local solid contribution without the need to resort to mega investment packages that have sent us into the arms of China.
CGN's 20% stake in the nearly $27 billion plant is worth nearly $5.5 billion. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
Debris from a rocket fell into a densely populated area of southern China after a launch failure. It's at least the fourth failure this year. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more.
An online video shows a carrier rocket's wreckage after falling into a densely populated area in southern China's Guangxi Autonomous Region. The footage shows the aftermath of a Chinese satellite failure. China state media reported that a new satellite China sent into space on Monday appeared abnormal after it entered orbit, and then the rocket failed. It was launched from southwestern China's Sichuan province. The video shows a big chunk of the wreckage turning in the air. There is no evidence that the U.S. ban of high-end chips to China is related to the failure, but it is a fact that before the ban, failed rocket launches were rare. But after the ban was introduced, many more failures were reported from China. Earlier this month, a rocket failed to bring a satellite into orbit in China's northwestern Gansu province, and there were 2 other similar incidents this year. Launch failure is not the only problem. Another issue is more worrying for the people on the ground, a chance that the rocket's wreckage could fall onto their homes. In 2019, a rocket's wreckage fell on houses, causing a fire. And 3 years ago, a rocket wreckage even caused an explosion. Some unsavory news from China. 3 pet cats that tested positive for the virus were put down by authorities despite their owner's objection. It happened in the northeastern Chinese city of Harbin, where a new surge of the virus outbreak has struck. The incident triggered anger on social media in China. Some people see it as needless slaughter. Chinese state media Beijing News reported on Tuesday the owner of the cats was diagnosed with the infection last week. Local health officials then euthanized her 3 cats, which also tested positive later. A virologist said the cats didn't have to be killed. She said it doesn't seem very realistic that the cats would be a risk for their owner to recontract COVID. Scientists also say there's no evidence that pets play a major role in spreading the virus to people. Some Chinese social media users posted online saying, "I disagree with this approach." And to put it bluntly, it's a crude, simplistic, and lazy form of management, just in order to dodge responsibility. Beijing News deleted its report from its social media channels on Wednesday. The city of Harbin went into semi-shutdown last week, and as China's week-long national holiday approaches, the city's residents have been told to stay home and avoid travel. Multiple infection clusters emerged in the provincial capital of Harbin in the past week, yet local officials said on Tuesday the source of the latest infections still remains unclear. Beijing has punished 9 local officials for failing to contain the outbreak.
A nonprofit organization is donating toys to children who lost all theirs in wildfires. This time, they're helping children in California who were impacted by the Caldor fire. Here's NTD's Eileen Ang with more.
Ashley Smith started Ashley's Toy Closet when she was 8 years old, after she lost her house to the Angora fire in 2007. Now at 22, she's still giving out toys, this time to children impacted by the Caldor fire in California's Grizzly Flats.
That big pink truck out there was full of toys, so we estimate between 10 and 15,000 toys, and it was all for them.
She and her organization have been covering every West Coast fire.
We do donate to toys to kids that have lost single house fires, Christmas, birthdays. We kind of do it all, so I have a stockpile of toys, I like to call it.
In the future, Smith hopes to have an East Coast chapter of Ashley's Toy Closet to help children impacted by hurricanes. One resident who was helping at the toy donation said she lost her home to the fire, but she's present to help her community.
I'm another one. I love helping people.
An elementary school named after her husband, Walt Taylor, was destroyed by the fire. He passed away 10 years ago.
He was big into community, doing things for the community. And I think that's why, because he was in Fire Safe Council, he was in the fire department, you name it, he was in it.
Another organization was helping victims of the Caldor fire.
Today we were able to do everything from children and baby needs, clothing, shoes, hygiene, household necessities. Gem and Be Strong department has family necessity boxes, which has also accumulated a liquid IV, sanitizer, socks, towels, and a little blanket.
They also offer camping gear and groceries. They are there to help people get through the first phase of recovery until FEMA steps in.
And then we'll work on our phase 2, which will be stuff to help people rebuild their homes and hopefully do tool drives. We don't promise anything like that. We just try to step into that category and work towards it. And usually it happens, and sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not.
Jernberg said they plan to go to the Fawn fire in Shasta County next to help the evacuees. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
The West Coast is home to many car enthusiasts from all makes and models. Two enthusiasts tell NTD's David Lamb what it's like to own their classic cars.
These two friends say they've been in the car scene for decades. They travel through California with others as a way to hang out, letting people take pictures of their Volkswagen Deluxe from the 60s. Martinez in the green shirt says he owned his car for about 5 years and it's about his 200th one. They both say that the maintenance is non-stop.
We all good friends with all the local tow truck drivers because we've been towed so many times. Yeah. But you don't stop. You got a passion for what you do with these cars, and yeah, you can travel far in them. I mean, we did 150, 200 mile round trip the other day. It wasn't a big trip, but it was from Fresno to Oakland and back, and we had a blast that day.
These enthusiasts say that cars are a reflection of themselves, and they put a lot of heart into their car builds.
When we present them is pretty much what we do. We don't park them, we present them. So they're in a sense, they're like kind of art.
Both cars run on 130 horsepower engines.
Well, being this low, you don't want to drive too fast, but we do keep up with traffic at 75 and 80 miles an hour, no problem. It's just you don't want to do that all day long in a car that's not built to do that. So we take it slow. We drive around 65, 70.
And they're equipped with 4-speed manual transmissions.
And if you got any Volkswagen for sale in the garage that you're not working on and you don't want it anymore, please call me. I will come and get them.
The Central Valley Air Cooled is
Central Valley Air
Cooled. It's a real thing.
Come Christmas time, Martinez and Durazo say to keep an eye out for their buses as they plan to decorate them with lights. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Michigan's governor announced an electric vehicle infrastructure plan at a motor show in Detroit. The Motor Bella Auto Show ran from Thursday to Sunday, showcasing modern and concept vehicles. We hear from guests what they think about the vehicles and the infrastructure plans.
The Detroit Motor Bella event finished its 4-day show over the weekend. The outdoor event was the first of its kind in the area, hosting a wide range of modern vehicles, including electric vehicles. At the event, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer announced new goals for an electric vehicle infrastructure in the state. The Department of Transportation will release a request for proposal on September 28th to carry out a charging test area. Several Motor Bella guests were in favor of the move.
You just plug them into your garage and you fill them up right there. You don't have to worry about anything, you know.
Yeah, I think that's the way of the future with the automobile. And we've got several nice electric vehicles on display here.
For most of the driving that you do in a year, most of it's in the neighborhood, you know, in your and charging it up in the garage is just absolutely fine.
Others were skeptical.
We were without power in this area for several days. I don't know how my car would have gotten to where it had to go if I'd had electricity. That's a big disadvantage.
They're trying to build it out. I don't think it can happen soon enough because we're getting a lot of cars to the market.
We have a home south. We can't drive a car from here down to South Carolina unless we know where a charging station is, and everybody is aware of that problem. So those are hurdles they have to get over.
Well, I'm actually preferred the traditional gas vehicle because of the noise. All right, I do like the power you get from it, and I do love the sound. I'm old school, so he's new school.
Whitmer says the charging stations are in the hope of achieving carbon neutrality by 2050.
People across the country can get a free cup of coffee today if you know where to look. NTD's Phil Zoe goes on the hunt for some freebies on what's known as National Coffee Day.
It's National Coffee Day. What better way to celebrate than getting some free coffee? Let's go check out Starbucks. Hi, sir. Free cup of coffee for National Coffee Day? Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks, man. Thank you. All right. I just got my free cup of coffee at Starbucks. Let's see what else we can get.
Krispy Kreme was also offering free coffee.
Wow, that looks so great. Thank you so much.
I got myself an iced coffee.
I usually drink coffee every day. I love coffee, but it's a little late in the day for me to be drinking coffee right now.
Better get the coffee while you can because prices are going up.
Coffee prices have gone up a lot of delays moving coffee from producing countries to our roasting plant in Queens, New York.
Coffee futures were selling for $1 per pound for years, but recently nearly doubled to about $2 per pound. Family-owned coffee roaster Bean & Bean says it's been a struggle.
Coffee that cost me $3.50 per pound is now costing me over $5 per pound.
Even so, Han says she's not planning to raise her prices just yet and is staying positive.
Let's all just take a moment to appreciate all of the love and the collective labor that was involved in bringing you this cup of coffee.
I don't know about you, but National Coffee Day is turning out pretty good for me. Phil Zoe, NTD News, New York.
And over to Europe. Portugal is exploring ways to innovate renewable energy. Colossal floating wind farms and hundreds of solar panels on the surface of a dammed reservoir have become part of the country's landscape. NTD's Joey Duguid brings us the story.
Renewable energy is an increasingly hot topic. Installing turbines in deep seas where winds blow much stronger allows the harnessing of more energy than onshore. 11 miles off the coast of northern Portugal, 3 behemoth wind turbines on gigantic floating structures are chained to the bottom of the Atlantic.
At the moment, it's one of the largest offshore floating wind farms of the world, yes. So the project is 25 megawatts. Each unit is 8.4 megawatts. So that's one of the largest wind turbines available in the market.
Challenges persist, and money is one of them. Pinheiro did not disclose how much the project cost, but building offshore is expensive. There is optimism that in the future, offshore wind farms will become more cost-efficient.
There are a few different designs in offshore floating technology. Eventually, they will mature enough to be more cost-effective, and that will bring large-scale offshore wind farms floating to our horizon.
A study funded by the US Department of Energy says wind energy costs could decline up to 49% by 2050. Offshore wind farms face opposition from fishing communities who are not allowed to fish near the platforms or underwater cables that connect them to land.
Not many of us have authorization to enter neighbouring country waters, so we are very limited. We are limited to the south by the windmills and to the north by the border with Spain. Of course, this affects us and will affect us in the future.
Pinheiro sees the project as a game changer, not only for Portugal but for the world. It remains to be seen whether the benefits will outweigh the challenges. Joy Duguid, NTD News.
Once stranded by the pandemic, Italy's tourism industry has begun to recover. Visitors now have the opportunity to see the country in a different way, from hot air balloons and helicopters. Let's look at the details.
For a panoramic view of Italy's vast landscape, a hot air balloon ride is an absolute no-brainer for some. As the country starts to revive its tourism, an entrepreneur has decided to offer a different experience to those seeking a unique way to see the sights.
A
new form of tourism, a new generation of it, a 4.0 tourism which brings the real tourism back to life. In other words, the rediscovery of the land.
Antonio Martini is the head of the AM Touristic. The company now offers hot air balloon rides above the Tuscan countryside in central Italy. So far, the response has been an enthusiastic one, especially for first-timers. Visitors on board are first impressed by the clarity of the vision and remarkable silence, with the only noise being the burners firing to maintain altitude.
It's really beautiful. We're flying over this area. We're very high and there's incredible silence. Therefore, it's very exciting and thrilling.
While the passengers admire the landscape 3,000 feet below and busy themselves taking selfies, pilots are there to navigate. The balloon lands after an hour flight where staff greet passengers with a bottle of wine, a tradition where everyone toasts to a successful journey. AM Touristic also organizes short helicopter trips around southern Tuscany's stunning coastline. Elsewhere, in the coastal town of Piombino, children and adults line up to board a helicopter. The town's mayor says he's delighted with the new branch of tourism.
Today is the first day with the AM Touristic helicopter, and I think the flights are all sold out. There has been an enormous response, an excellent response on the part of the people of Piombino, but also the many tourists who are in the center of the city, despite it being September.
Italy suffered more than 130,000 deaths due to the pandemic. Now, as the sun sets on Piombino, the country's wounds seem to have started healing.
500 teddy bears made in the likeness of German Chancellor Angela Merkel sold out in just a few days. And there's even a long waiting list for the next batch. Herman Toys made the bears. It's a company that's been producing bear personalities of every variety, including Barack Obama and Queen Elizabeth II since 1920. The company also made a bear when Merkel took office in 2005 called the Angie. The bears are not cheap. They cost €180 or $209 each, but each one is handmade. Merkel will step down as soon as the parties form a new government. She has led 4 governments in Germany over the past 16 years. The country will likely have to wait months for the parties to agree on a coalition government. So for Merkel fans, the cuddly teddies might have to help them bear the weight. And coming up, feeling those pandemic blues? Going for a swim might help. People in Brazil are turning to the ocean to help lift their spirits.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
into the blue to beat the pandemic blues. That's what some locals in Rio de Janeiro are doing to lift their spirits during COVID times.
Before the pandemic, the famous Copacabana beach attracted millions of tourists and swimmers each year. Now its waves give cold comfort to residents dealing with the grind of daily life. Bernardo Tillman is a member of a group that accompanies swimmers into the open water. He said that many people who suffer depression are still scared to say that they are suffering from it, and that the ocean is a great help.
Talking about mental health is a taboo. And when you come to the open water, we help everyone that arrives.
Brazil was particularly hard hit during the pandemic with some 600,000 deaths. But as the country slowly lifts its COVID-19 restrictions, many are still left to deal with the anguish of the virus. One university professor suffered a stress-related illness during the pandemic. She says swimming in Copacabana's cold waves has helped her health.
I already had some treatment, but it didn't work. It was only palliative. So I decided to start swimming because a friend recommended it to me. And it has since changed my life.
Experts believe that swimming in cold water not only provides cardiovascular benefits, but it also releases endorphins into the brain, giving us a feeling of euphoria.
Now that people are freer post-vaccine, people are starting to feel what happened, the consequences of which are being seen now. Depression, anxiety, what happened, what didn't happen. I see that sports makes the difference.
The wait is over. The latest James Bond movie, No Time to Die, finally held its world premiere in London yesterday. It's been delayed for over a year due to the pandemic. Now, the movie will hit U.S. theaters next week.
It marked London's most high-profile red carpet since the start of the pandemic. Actor Daniel Craig and his co-stars reunited for the premiere of the 25th James Bond movie, No Time to Die, on Tuesday.
It's just a great relief. It was so important to be able to come and celebrate with all the other cast and crew, and to get it into the cinemas, and we're here. And literally a year ago, I didn't think that was going to happen.
No Time to Die is Craig's fifth and final outing as British secret agent James Bond. He's wrapping up a 15-year tenure that began in 2006 with Casino Royale. We don't know yet who will play the next Bond.
That's probably up to other people to figure out. I'm going to just leave it with them.
And any advice on next
Make it your own. That's really it.
The movie was originally planned to hit the big screen last April, but pandemic restrictions delayed it 3 times. Now, movie theaters hope it will bring audience numbers back to pre-pandemic levels.
I know that the world is they're all expecting for this film, and I hope they'll like it. And we really try to give the best, we gave everything for this film, and the film is amazing, and I hope people will love it.
You can imagine why.
The movie cost an estimated $200 million to produce. Director Kerry Joji Fukunaga says the most daunting part was coming up with a good story.
When I met your new 00, she's a disarming young woman.
We had a very short amount of time to do it, and I'm very proud of what we came up with, and I think people are going to like it a lot.
The movie tells the story of Bond coming out of retirement from idyllic life in Jamaica to help track down a new villain armed with lethal technology. Oscar winner Rami Malek plays the villain.
He's mischievous, he's devious, and I don't know that he thinks of himself as a villain. Perhaps Daniel's the villain.
Thank you, guys.
The movie introduces a new character, Nomi, a 00 agent, played by Lashana Lynch.
With Nomi and all the other female characters, we're ensuring that we're representing us, truly. They're real human beings, real emotions, real strength that comes from vulnerability and things that we relate to.
4 members of the British royal family also showed up to the premiere. Prince Charles, his wife Camilla, Prince William and his wife Kate. No Time to Die will be in theaters in the UK starting this Thursday.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.